Lo primero, saber por qué para esta ópera prima ha escogido esta historia, cómo llegó a ella.
So this is my second movie, actually. My first movie, I think 9, maybe 8 people saw it. So it's a common mistake. The reason why I told this story, though it's my second movie, was because I'm a father. I have 2 kids. My daughter's now 13 and my son's 9, but they were younger, a couple years younger when I was writing the film. And it was a point in my life when I was thinking a great deal about my values as a person and what I wanted to pass on to my children in the very brief time they're in my house. And I started fantasizing, I think, about what if I could just devote every waking moment to them and what that would be like. And in a way, that's what the parents do in this film. They practice an extreme form of conscious parenting, you know, being present with their children. I mean, I think all of us are so torn between our professional and personal lives. I think it's twice as hard for women, you know. Children, I mean, I see that in my son. He's 9, if we're walking down the street and he hurts himself, he still goes to his mom in a way, you know. So I think women do the majority of the work, but for both parents, I think it's difficult to be torn. You're in the office and you think you're being a bad parent. You're at home, you think you're doing a bad job at work. So, yeah.
¿Cree en digamos, un lugar alternativo y que puede haber un punto de equilibrio entre estos dos mundos?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I know people who live like this. It's an extreme form. I've chosen not to live like this. I did as a child, very much like this. And I've chosen now not to live that way. I live in a town and try and go into the forest as often as possible and introduce my children to that environment and those skills. So I do think it's possible. It just takes a degree of work, and it's not something you can be casual about, you know.
Algo que sale así.
Ha dicho que su infancia fue algo así, ¿es porque digo que tiene, digamos, ciertos aspectos que le recuerdan a su padre o por qué?
No, we actually live like this. My mother started some alternative living communities in Northern California and Oregon, or was part of starting. It was the 1980s, not the 60s, and these people were not hippies. Hippies is a reductive and inaccurate term, I think, to describe who they were. They were people who just didn't want to live in cities. They were artisans or artists, and some of the houses had electricity and plumbing, some did not. In the summertime, we slept in a teepee. You know, and my brother and I would spend hours in the forest by ourselves, but that's the only bit that's really autobiographical. My mother was not this character. This is a fictional character.
Y en cuanto a la estética, también quería saber de dónde esta película es muy colorista, ¿no? Y tiene una nostalgia todo el rato.
Well, some of that comes from just this, let's see, rendering what would be realistic. You know, if in the script there were a lot more animal skins, and because I thought if they're living in, you know, where they are, they would be, and they're eating animals, they'd be using the skins. But when we started integrating that into actual costumes, it seemed like bad Tarzan movies from the 50s. So there's some of that, but a lot of the color palette was created by the costume designer Courtney Hoffman, and some of the things were in the script and some were not. You know, the whale costume was entirely her idea. In the script, this was something. I think this was a light blue suit, because when I was a kid, I wore a lot of vintage clothing, you know, and because it's inexpensive, very inexpensive. And I saw light blue tuxedos from the 1970s every time I'd go in there because they're ugly and no one wants them. So I thought that's something that he would be able to afford and wear. You know, the truth is what you're doing is you have a script and you invite all these other artists to reflect on it. And so some of these things are directly my ideas or contributions, and some of them are the contributions or ideas of the other artists who then, you know, that we all collaborate and make this.